Okay, so the hypothesis of a statement is always whatever comes after the word if. So the hypothesis is it is raining. So hypothesis is it is raining. The conclusion comes after the word then. So this would be the conclusion here, which would be the grass is wet. Now, it's a little piggy thing, but you do not include the words if or then when you're identifying the hypothesis and conclusions. Those are basically it's like your setup for a conditional statement. So when you want to write the converse, you take the hypothesis and conclusion and you switch them. So you say, if the grass is wet, then it is raining. And that is a false statement because a counterexample to the converse would be sprinklers. A counterexample is anything with a true hypothesis but a false conclusion. So the grass is wet, but it's not because it was raining, it's because it was the sprinklers. So can the statement be made into a biconditional? You would say no, because the converse is not always true. For number 5, how to explain a good definition. A good definition works in both ways. So if it's a rhombus, then the area is 1/2 d1 times d2, and that's a true statement. However, if you use the converse of that, if the area equals 1/2 d1 times d2, then it must be a rhombus. That is false. So it is not a good definition. Because the area of a kite is 1/2 times d1 times d2. Okay. And to write this as a biconditional statement, remember, this is the hypothesis after the word if. This is the conclusion right here. So if you want to write it as a biconditional, you write if and only if in the middle of it. So M is the midpoint of AB if and only if AM equals BM or MB. Okay. So if A and B are supplementary, then the measure of angle A, supplementary means add to 180 degrees. So that's one of the things you need to know for your test. Supplementary means add to 180. The other thing that we have is complementary. And complementary means that you're going to add to 90. And if you see vertical angles, that means that they are equal to each other. So it's either add to 180, add to 90, equal. The ones with the degrees have the ary in it. Complementary, supplementary, vertical is equal. Okay, so for number 7, A and B are supplementary. So therefore, 5x plus 24 plus 7x minus 12 equals 180. And combine like terms, that's 12x plus 12 equals 180. The opposite of plus 12 is minus 12 on both sides. So we get 12x equals 168. And divide both sides by 12 to get x equals 14. Okay, but it didn't ask me for A or X. It asked me the measure of angle A. How big's the angle? So I need to take X and plug it into this formula. So I do 5 times 14 plus 24 for a grand total of 94 degrees. For number 8, same setup. A and B are supplementary. A and C are supplementary. So therefore, 5x plus 24 plus 3x plus 44 equals 180. Combine like terms to get 8x plus 68 equals 180. Subtract 68 on both sides to get 8x equals 112. And divide both sides by x, or by 8, to get x equals 14. Again, we got to plug it back into C. So 3 times 14 plus 44 is a grand total of 86 degrees. Again, for 9 and 10, or sorry, for 9, complementary. Complementary means add to 90. So therefore we set it up as 7x minus 12 plus 3x plus 44 equals 90. Combine like terms, 7x plus 3x, that is 10x. Negative 12 plus 44, that's 36. Subtract 36 on both sides to get 10x equals, I'm sorry, not 36, that should be 32. Subtract 32 on both sides to get 10x equals 58. And divide both sides by 10 to get x equals 5.8. So again, they don't want just x, they want us to plug it back into angle C. So 3 times 5.8 plus 44 comes out to a grand total of, I didn't want to do this in my head, but whatever. That's 17.4 plus 44 for a grand total of 61.4 degrees. Okay, for number 10, A and C are vertical. Solve for angle A. If they're vertical, that means they are equal. So I'm going to do this work over here. A and C are vertical, so 5x plus 24 equals 3x plus 44. Subtract 3x on both sides. Subtract 24 on both sides. So I get 2x equals 20. Or divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 10. Again, you're not done. You got to plug it back in. 5 times 10 plus 24 is 74 degrees. B and C are vertical angles. We got to solve that too. So we get 7x minus 12 equals 3x plus 44. Subtract 3x on both sides. Add 12 to both sides. And we get 4x equals 56. Divide both sides by 4 to get x equals 14. Plug it back into angle B. 7 times 14 minus 12 comes out to a grand total of, let's see, 14, so it's 70, 28, 98. 98 minus 12 is 86. Don't trust myself. I'm tired. Not tired. I haven't been awoken. 86. I was correct. So solve for x and y. So vertical angles you can't do because we have a 3x and a 5y. Let's get the x's first. So these two make up a straight line, which means they add to 180. So it's 5x minus 10 plus 6x plus 25 equals 180, which makes this 11x plus 15 equals 180. Subtract 15 on both sides to get 11x equals 165, and divide both sides by 11 to get x equals 15. So we solved for one of them. Now we need to solve for the other one. So when we plug 15 into x, 5 times 15, that makes this 75 minus 10 for 65 degrees. And we know that these two are equal to each other. So I do 3 times 15 plus 5y equals 65 degrees. Or 45 plus 5y equals 65 degrees. Sorry, I'm doing that off to the side. So I just plugged 15 into x, the x right here, and set it equal to 65. Since they're vertical, they need to be equal to each other. Subtract 45 from both sides to get 5y equals 20, or y equals 4. Properties. Identify the name of the property being used. So if they're congruent, that means they're equal. That we'll just call congruence property, or the definition of congruent. For number 14, if 2 equals 5 and 1 equals 5, therefore 2 and 1 must equal to each other. So that would be the transitive property. I would also accept the substitution property, because you're basically replacing angle 5 with angle 1. If they're linear pairs and they're supplementary, that is the definition of linear pairs. And I did 3x plus 6x makes 9x, so that's combined like terms. So in this one, in the first line, we had measure of angle 2. It got replaced with a 34. When you replace something, that's an example of the substitution property. And if A and B are complementary, then A plus B is 90. That is the definition of complementary. So for statements, complete a two-target proof. So 3 times 3x plus 5 minus 6x equals 5 parentheses x minus 2 plus 19. And the reason why we know that is it's given. Okay, the first line in the proof should usually be given. So for the second line, since we got parentheses, I'm going to distribute everything. 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times 5 is 15 minus 6x. 5 times x is 5x. 5 minus 12, or sorry, 5 times negative 2 is minus 10 plus 19. And we got that using the distributive property. For number 3, combine like terms. 9x minus 6x, that is 3x plus 15. On the right side, we got 5x. Negative 10 plus 19, that's plus 9. So that's combine like terms. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides and subtract 9 from both sides. When I subtract from both sides, that's called the subtraction property. So I get 6 is equal to 2x. And then I divide both sides by 2 to get 3 equals x. And that is by dividing both sides, or the division property. Okay. I didn't use all the lines in this proof because I did 2 subtraction properties in one step. You could separate that into 2 steps if you would like. Number 20. Statement should always be the first thing is what you're given. EXB congruent to BXD. That's given. It went from congruent to equal. That's the definition of congruent. And we said angle 1 plus angle 2 equals EXB. So angle 1 plus angle 2 makes up EXB. They contain 1 and 2. And angle 3 plus angle 4 makes angle BXD. So that would be the angle addition property. Angles are being added. Angle addition. I think it's a postulate, actually. So angle 1 plus angle 2 equals BXD. And I believe that would be part of the transitive property. Or you could say substitution property. Because it's said up in the original problem, it said 1 plus 2 equals EXB, but EXB is equal to BXD, so I'm replacing EXB with BXD. Okay. Now we're replacing BXD with angle 3 and angle 4. So that's another substitution property. For number 4, you might have been able to call it the transitive property. For number 6, when you do angle 1 is equal to angle 4, you look at the picture. 1 and 4 are across from each other. They make that X shape. So therefore, those are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. And congruent means equal by the definition of congruent angles. So therefore, we have angle 4 plus angle 2 equals angle 3 plus angle 4. We're replacing angle 1 with angle 4 in this problem. So that's another substitution. And we subtract angle 4 on both sides. So that's the subtraction property. And equal means congruent. So definition of congruence. That's the proof. Basically, we can just go through definitions here. Perpendicular bisector is a line, segment, or ray that is perpendicular to the segment at its midpoint. So it would be 5. Counterexample. An example that shows a statement is incorrect. That's 6. Conditional is an if-then statement. 1. Hypothesis is the if part. 8. Conclusion is the then part for a truth value let's go back to that. Converse is when you exchange a hypothesis and conclusion, so that's a 2. The biconditional uses if and only if, so that would be number 3 has the example. And a good definition is one that could be written as a true biconditional, 7. So that means the only thing missing is 9. Okay, the reflexive property is anything equals itself, 10. Symmetric property is when you can list it backwards. So therefore, if A equals B, then B equals A, that's 15. The transitive property is if A equals B, then B equals C, then A equals C, so that's 16. Substitution property is where you replace stuff. So where is one where we replace it? So 24, if A equals B, then B can replace it in any expression. It's 24. N is the addition property, which is where we add to both sides, and that would be 13. O is the subtraction property, where we subtract with both sides, 12. Multiplication property is when we multiply to both sides, and that would be 21. Q is the division property, which is 11, dividing on both sides. R is segment addition, where you add 2 segments together. So adding segments together, 19. Angle addition is where you add angles together. Angles being added together, 22. If AB equals CD, if angle E is congruent to angle F, I think we're finishing the statements. That would be 17. So if the line segments are congruent, then their measures are congruent. Midpoint, if it's the midpoint, then that means it is equal in the middle of things. That'd be 14. So you can tell it's the midpoint because you have the dashes on either side. It's an equal distance from E to F to F of G. Supplementary angles are angles that add to 180. So that would be 20. They don't always have to be next to each other. Like, for example, these are not next to each other, but these are. W is complementary, which means add to 90 degrees, 18. And vertical angles are across from each other, so 1 and 2, 3 and 4, it's 23. Good luck.